Good evening and welcome to the Pompey Politics Podcast, the podcast where we look at matters of local, national, and international political importance in a calm, measured, reasonable way to get to the heart of the matter. I'm Ian Tiny Morris.
And I'm Simon Sansbury. So calm and heart of the matter. This is our final show of 2025, unless there's some sort of massive political disaster that we feel we can't do anything but comment on. It's not like us to comment on something randomly. But this week, we'll be commenting on, were there any arguments in the full council chamber on the 9th of December? Were there any surprises?
Did they get to the heart of the matter?
I'm not entirely sure. I think the jury's out on that one. I don't know whether actually that still goes before a jury. That might not. So who can tell? So so Tuesday the 9th of December, Portsmouth City Council's final full council of the year, and after recent announcements about devolution and LGR, it's obviously not the last ever Portsmouth City full council meeting, but that might happen at some point in a couple of years in the future if the thing actually goes ahead. But who can tell? So we've a bit of a packed schedule, bit of drama. Can you possibly guess what head adornment the Lord Mayor Gerald Vernon Jackson was wearing during the meeting?
Difficult to say, and possibly edging towards a hate crime to ask the blind man to answer that question. But presuming it's made with good intentions, I thought as the mayor he had to wear some kind of crown anyway as standard.
No, and I mean that was why I was asking you to guess rather than testing you.
A piece of black cloth in the style of the judge delivering the death sentence.
No, I'm gonna put everybody out of their misery. So he wore reindeer antlers heads, basically a head adornment of being the Christmas festive spirit. There was at least one other councillor that was sporting a Christmas jumper. I don't know whether everyone else didn't get the memo or whether they just weren't up for it. They if that was their attempt at entering into the Christmas spirit, sorry, Lord Mayor, sorry, Gerald, that didn't seem to kind of pass off. But
well, you can't these days, can you?
No,
can't say Christmas at all. I make mine wish somebody Merry Christmas, pushed him in a lake. He was arrested for it. His world's gone mad. I'm going to stray into the props there to the talking heads and Colin from Portsmouth. So I'm plagiarising at that point. So getting straight into it then, because there was plenty there. Where did we go first?
So quick looking at the agenda. So the first things kind of worth mentioning are the deputations. So there were 6 deputations in this full council, which were, sorry, and my apologies, I've just lost my notes. So so there were deputations from Stacey Edmonds, who was talking about the 12F, which was the pedestrian safety on Portsdown Road. And there was deputations from Viola Langley, who of course
friend
we know
of the pod.
friend of the pod, and a co-founder of Let's Stop Aquind, who spoke to the motion, which was 12A, which is about Let's Stop Aquind. So we had then 3 contributors speaking about the antisocial motion 12B, which was Jim Kemvin, Patrick Keefe, and Christopher Adeniran, who all shared personal experiences of antisocial behaviour and calling for measures to be basically taken to kind of bring us into the matter. And then another frequent visitor to the pod, Jacob Short, was speaking about 12D knife crime. So there was quite a thing there. And Jacob's deputation included a list of about 9 or 10 knife attacks that had occurred in Portsmouth over this year. Knife incidents. Most of them, all bar one of them, bar one of the ones that he listed, actually someone had been stabbed and injured So quite a horrific litany of incidents across the city that he went through there. So after the deputations, we went through the agenda kind of quite quickly. Sorry. One of the things that was meant to be on the agenda, item 11, was a briefing about devolution. Now, given the subject of last week's show, and the government basically pulling the rug and saying, actually, no, do you know what? We're going to delay this devolution mayor's election lark for 2 years. There is no briefing. I believe the Lord Mayor described it as we can't really give you. There can't really be a briefing when this council actually have more questions than there are actually answers. So
I guess in a Christmas spirit, they could have broken into a choir of "You don't know what you're doing," but that's about all the options that were available. Right, so no devolution briefing. What did we have? Are we on to notices of motion?
So yes, we will. So very quickly. Apologies. So who wasn't there? Apologies from Councillor Ben Swan, Councillor George Madrick, and Councillor Emily Strudwick. So there were 3 that weren't there. There were a couple of people that were due to be turning up that had advised they were turning up late, which is Councillor Tyndall and Councillor Fazackley. That's kind of how we got off. And off we went to the races. And the 12A was the Let's Stop Aquind motion, and I won't shock anybody.
Nothing to say about this, really, is it?
Yeah. But as Viola said herself in her deputation, please do, if you've not seen it already, please do go watch the public meeting that was held on YouTube in this very shire on the 26th of November. I'm just popping the link to that into the chat. So if anybody wants to go watch that after they've watched this, then please do.
Yep.
And please don't miss out on that. It's an important project. Councillor Steve Pitt, the leader of the Portsmouth City Council, also commented about that there's a danger of kind of campaign fatigue because the thing's going on so bloody long. People have either assumed that it's actually dead and buried, or that basically that Aquind have given up, and unfortunately neither of those things are true. So we shall, I'm sure, come back to that at some point in the future. But 12B was tackling antisocial behaviour, which was a motion from Councillor Charlotte Gerarda and Councillor Graham Heaney of Labour. This was noting about basically calling for a scrutiny review of antisocial behaviour strategy and reporting systems, and improved public communication on how to report antisocial behaviour, and stronger partnership between the council, police, landlords, businesses and voluntary groups, and a progress report back to council within 12 months. Now, interestingly, this had not 1, not 2, but 3 amendments put forward to it. One of us actually put forward on the floor. So there was an amendment from Mary Vallely and George Fielding. There was an amendment from Steve Pitt and Lee Hunt to briefly kind of tidy up some of the language. The Vallely Fielding amendment was literally kind of replacing one word. But Simon Bosher and Yinka Adeniran put forward an amendment actually as the debate started, essentially calling for item 1 of the motion to be removed, because what Simon Bosher pointed out was that what the thing was calling for is actually what the scrutiny panel is meant to do. So it can't kind of subvert what the scrutiny panel is meant to do. And if it was going that way, then 2 to 5 were essentially predetermining the outcome of that scrutiny. In which case you kind of don't really want to kind of find the answer before you kind of investigate something, do you? That's not kind of a great idea. And in order to make that work, that meant that the Vallely Fielding amendment wasn't needed because that applied to section 1. So in which case Mary Vallely agreed to withdraw her motion, her amendment, and that left the Pitt Hunt amendment and the Bosher Adeniran amendment. So I've got some clips of that debate. shall we hear the debate?
I think we should
and see
jump
what we
into
go
them
through?
because you've gone super hyper technical there, which is lovely. But let's hear what went on.
Okay, let's go for it.
This motion aims to raise awareness about some of the challenges that both residents and businesses are facing and make suggestions for what more can be done. We've brought this motion here today because for my Labour councillor colleagues and I, as well as our local MPs, we're seeing a rise in the number of residents contacting us about antisocial behaviour. So while it may be the case that in the council's recent ASB report, we're seeing a decrease in ASB in some areas, we know that there is obviously a lot of crime that goes unreported, and actually crime statistics themselves don't show the full extent of crimes that the public are experiencing. And in a recent meeting with the district commander for Portsmouth, he made me aware that the police are also seeing an increase in reports of antisocial behaviour across the city. So this motion aims to raise awareness about some of the challenges that both residents and businesses are facing and make suggestions for what more can be done. We know, firstly, it's important to say that there is a lot of really, really excellent work going on already between the police, our elected representatives and the council, and in particular our community safety team. So I just want to thank every person involved in keeping our city safe because they're doing incredible work. But we just wanted to bring this here today because of the sheer volume of casework that we're getting and the complexity of the issues that we're seeing come up, that we feel that we need to raise awareness and try and seek for more to be done. So we think a sort of more comprehensive and strategic approach is really needed to tackle what's become a really big issue. And the casework speaks for itself.
Money is tight, and therefore it's particularly important that we make that request of government, bearing in mind that they still have not fully addressed the local government associations' very clear steer that billions more money is needed to go into local authorities if we are going to halt the decline in the amount of services that local authorities can deliver. And with the existential threat of LGR coming and that £67 million figure that we've all heard about, we don't want to be losing our community warden service.
I am interested in getting results outside in these parks and on our streets, outside all the shops in South Sea, North End, wherever. I'm not being political, but we have a Labour government, we have 2 Labour MPs in Portsmouth, we have 9 Labour councillors, and things are still not getting addressed. So to see Labour bring in an interesting notice of motion, I understand why, and I welcome it, and I welcome the interest, of course I do. I also welcome the investment which you talk about into policing that's ongoing, but if you talk to the Hampshire Police Federation, they will not be so rosy about it because police paying conditions are so abysmal nowadays that for every policeman that comes in the front door, one goes out the back door. So numbers are stabilised and the police are still running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Members, we know that addressing antisocial behaviour in this administration, from consultation with residents across Paulsgrove, Milton, Drayton, Portsea, Southsea, or right across the city, people told us they wanted more things for young people to do and direct them towards worthwhile activities. And this is why we commit substantial resources to giving young people more things to do. By directing young people towards doing more and better things is really the answer, and educating them really is giving young people more things to do, keeping them off the street and keeping them out of antisocial behaviour. Waverley Park, I completely agree, it's a big problem. Everything described is a criminal offence. We are not the police here, and our wardens are not the police. So, you know, these are policing matters, and it's down to the police to deal with that. We've done what we can so far, putting up additional cameras and locking the gates, as Mr. Kinvin acknowledged there.
I've seen a difference in the type of complaints and the type of experiences that people are experiencing in our city, which makes me deeply, deeply worried and sad. I'll just tell you a personal, deeply upsetting story. My husband and I were down on the seafront, and a couple of people came down the street, gave a card to my husband, which is all about joining a political group that I won't name in here. And he said to the person, I really wouldn't touch that. And the man accused him of being a rapist. It was an extraordinarily upsetting thing, having a personal attack from somebody that we'd never met before, which assumed that it was hate crime. And I think we are seeing more of that. The arson, that my neighbours that I've lived next door to for 35 years in Victoria Road South, it is deeply, deeply worrying and upsetting. Must be something that the police take seriously, because I don't want Portsmouth to become a hateful city.
As someone who has suffered for many years, in fact all of my life, and struggled around alcohol and substance addiction, I know what it's like to be the person who's suffering. I know what it's like to be criminalised for behaving in a way which is the only solution you have for the darkness which is a world without substances. I know what it's like to have everybody that you come into contact with turn away from you, walk away from you, and not want to spend time with you. I know what it's like to be alone. I know what it's like to have no hope. I know what it's like to experience homelessness, and that's in this city. I know what all of those things feel like, and I can categorically guarantee you, when I was in my early years of school and someone said, what do you want to be when you're 12, 13, 14, or when you grow up? A homeless drug addict was not something that I stated. The problem that I see, or the problem that I saw, it wasn't the substances I was using or the way in which I was behaving. It was a lack of support. We say that the problem is supported housing. I think supported housing is the solution. We say that the problem is the drugs and the alcohol. I think being there and supporting the drug addict and the alcoholic is the solution.
So, and just to make sure everyone's familiar with who was speaking there, so that was opened by leader of Labour Group Councillor Charlotte Gerarda, then leader of the council Steve Pitt, then Lee Hunt, then Julie Smythe from Labour, then Nick Dorrington from the Lib Dems, with his sharing his personal experience. So there was also a lot of very, very personal experiences that were shared by other councillors, as well as the one that Judith shared. Charlotte Gerarda talked about Creatiques, the bridal shop in Southsea that suffered from anti-social behaviour issues, and Councillor Shah cited the recent incident that he'd experienced in being intimidated on Cosham High Street. So there's kind of a bit of a theme there of it's bad, which I don't think, or we don't like antisocial behaviour, which I don't think there was anybody disagreeing with the concept that they don't like antisocial behaviour, but a little bit of a departure of actually how bad is it and what is it that's actually being done.
And a little bit of a muddying of the waters, because it's that there's a difference, and I think it was Steve touched on it, which is that there is a difference between antisocial behaviour and criminal activity. And I think that those two lines got quite blurred there. But I actually think that it is a known problem. It is a perpetual problem, and it's one that, let's be honest, every time we do the hustings, and I think we've done them 3-4 years in a row now, a question to each prospective councillor about antisocial behaviour we tend to include, because it's probably, I would argue that we've often joked that local council is about dog poo and parking. I think ASB is coming above that, but it's for me it is a known problem. But in terms of what the cure is, I think I don't think there is any kind of commonality on what needs to be done. And without wishing to sound despondent this close to Christmas, I'm not sure it's a problem that can be fixed, because it is that element of, even if if it is criminality, we know that the any kind of sanction that would happen through the courts, which would take an enormous amount of time, an enormous amount of money, it is not going to dissuade someone from that kind of behaviour.
Well, I think so. I mean, how the debate kind of bore out, and it's quite an interesting debate. So once you kind of get past the technical point at the beginning, which my apologies to listeners that I kind of bored you with at the start, and it was actually a comment that Lee Hunt made. Anybody watching this is going to be deeply confused that we're talking about deeply bureaucratic points, when actually we just want to stop crime and criminality. And I think there were several different people trying to make several different points that were adjacent, but not. And although overall, obviously, everybody agrees they want antisocial behaviour to reduce and to stop, and they want people to feel safer. And that's the other interesting and different thing is people feeling less safe isn't necessarily the same as there being more crime.
No.
So that's a conundrum that obviously the police force face all the time if they're being kind of led by stats rather than by feelings, which you can kind of understand. But on the other hand, some of the other interventions were talking about we need a holistic approach. Councillor Susie Horton talked about we need to look at the upstream causes of this, and Darren Sanders repeated the New Labour phrase of we need to be tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime in order to kind of fix it. And I think the overall takeaway is there isn't just one solution.
No.
So you need to kind of press all of these levers at the same time and in concert. And I think some of the rebuttals from the cabinet were that actually some of this stuff they're already doing and some of this stuff already exists. So you're asking them to put into place a cross-department working that already happens. You're asking them to put in place some sort of scrutiny mechanism that already happens. All of those kind of things. So it kind of seemed like a conversation about we all agree there's an issue, and we vaguely actually agree on what the solutions are, because the solution that is actually the legality and, to be blunt, there being more police officers is not something that they have control of.
Yeah, but I think that's a kind of misnomer, isn't it? I think that is a false dawn. It's a false promise, because there's that element of you can have more police officers, and the police officers that we have do a very decent job, and they arrest people, and they find the evidence, and that evidence goes to court. And we currently have a court system where it is that difficulty that going to court and getting a criminal record is something that law-abiding citizens would not want. It is a deterrent to them, oblique us. But if you are beyond that, if you are a perpetual shoplifter that goes and shoplifts every day, and you will get caught, and you will get sent to court, and you will receive a conditional discharge or a short custodial sentence, and you will do it again and again and again. It doesn't matter how many police officers we have. And similarly, with the antisocial behaviour, if groups of youths are zipping about on electric scooters, shouting, swearing, creating an intimidatory atmosphere, you can put all the dispersal orders in that you like, and the police can police those dispersal orders. But if the people committing the antisocial behaviour simply do not care, and the consequences of their actions there's no deterrent, then you won't fix the problem. And I think the tough on the causes of crime, yes. You can go upstream, you can do all of those things. But I guess there's that element of, how do you persuade somebody that they should conform to the social norms of behaviour? And that is such a big question. We could probably do a whole podcast on it.
We probably could, and we'd need a lawyer, someone from the police force, and probably a criminal psychologist. So if anyone wants to come on and talk about that, because
we'd love to do an episode on it.
We'd love to do an episode on that. So that was 12. That was 12B. The two. Remember, there were three originally motions. Well, first there were two, then there were three, then there were two.
Yep.
Both of the two that were left were subsumed. And in a surprise, probably to no one, it was passed unanimous. The subsumed motion was passed. So the substantiated motion was passed unanimously because everybody wants antisocial behaviour to stop and reduce.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that was 12B. 12C was to be a motion from Strudwick and Madrick, but because they weren't in the chamber, that wasn't able to be discussed because they weren't there to propose and second it. That was the one about cross-border taxi licensing, so that'll have to live to be considered another day. So that then took us to a break, and then took us to 12D when we came back from the break, which was the where's the I've scrolled right past it. Sorry, which was the tackling the knife crime, which was brought forward by Councillor Matthew Cordy and seconded by Chris Dyke, and it was Matthew Cordy's maiden speech in the chamber. So that was something for him. So those two Reform councillors were bringing that one forward, and bearing in mind obviously Jacob Short's deputation at the beginning of the proceedings. Let's listen to the clip on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One vital step we can take is to push for stricter sentencing for individuals convicted of carrying and using knives unlawfully. In recent months, Portsmouth has seen a troubling number of violent incidents involving knives. In fact, police data indicates that Portsmouth continues to experience violent crime rates above both regional and national averages. This trend is deeply concerning, particularly as we see a rising knife carrying among our younger population. The need for stronger measures is more urgent than ever. One vital step we can take is to push for stricter sentencing for individuals convicted of carrying and using knives unlawfully. By making it clear that such behaviour will not be accepted, we can deter potential offenders, ultimately creating a safer environment for our residents. I propose that we write to the Home Secretary urging a review and strengthening of current legislation on knife crime. This includes requesting tougher sentences for those convicted of unlawful knife possession. I believe that we should also request additional funding from the Home Office to support the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary in their targeted operations against knife crime in the area. Proper resources are essential for effective policing, and although I believe the local police are doing an incredible job with the resources at their disposal, we must ensure that our officers have the tools they need to effectively tackle this issue. Our approach, however, cannot rely solely on police enforcement. We must also support and expand community-led initiatives that educate our young people about the dangers of carrying knives. It's crucial to provide positive pathways, mentoring opportunities for our youth to make better choices. By investing in education and community programmes, we can help deter these young people from engaging in knife-related activities and promote a culture of safety and responsibility. The increase in knife crime is not just a statistic, it affects the lives of our residents and their sense of security. By taking action through stricter sentencing, proactive policing and community education, we can work towards a safer Portsmouth for everyone.
And to give you some context, the knives that you are looking at were purchased by a friend of mine who collects knives for display purposes only. Not my kind of collection, but each to their own. Once he gets them home, he never removes them from his display cabinets. He just thinks aesthetically they're very nice. The smaller one is a lock knife, and the other one is aptly called a Rambo knife. All he needed to purchase these was a valid photo ID. He uses his driving licence, and the shop that he buys them from, which is in Portsmouth, writes his driving licence number down in a little notebook that's underneath his counter. There is no need to have knives like these. They're not utility knives, they're not cooking knives, and I'm pretty sure there are no wild boar running around urban parts of this country to hunt and kill.
Look, there's no question about it, Councillor Corey, that prevention is better than cure, which is why when we talked about earlier on, we're investing so much money into young people in this city. The fact is that even one incident is too many, and we remain committed in this council to working with partners to prevent these harms and keep our communities safe. That on young people, which we heard about, When somebody pulls a knife, when somebody has a go, when somebody has a fight, it's too late. It's happened. They get criminalised and the rest of their lives are ruined forever because they pulled a knife on somebody. We have definitely got to get to the early intervention. That is why we continue to build facilities for people. We continue to invest in community centres. We continue to invest in play parks right across the city. We continue to invest in youth centres. We continue to invest in a youth outreach service, where you have been told, this council has been told, over and over and over again, no other councils around here do all this work. None. Absolutely none. We do it here. Why do we do it? We do it because we invest people's money properly.
Knife crime is a challenge that affects every community differently, and Portsmouth is no exception. As a proud and diverse city of a young population and strong neighbourhood identities, we understand how vital it is to maintain public confidence, protect our residents and ensure that our young people have safe, positive futures. The work undertaken by the Violence Reduction Unit is critical, ensuring that early intervention, mentoring, education and family support all sit alongside policing activity.
I would never tell my daughter that the way to protect yourself is to carry a knife, because A, that will hurt somebody, and B, you'll get into an awful lot of trouble. Like, it starts right at the ground level of why do people think it's acceptable to carry knives? Is it because they don't think they're ever going to get caught? And if they do get caught, what's going to be the punishment? It doesn't really matter. The incident on Tangiers Road, that was, as far as I'm aware, somebody taking matters into their own hands because something hadn't been done prior when they had phoned the police. You know, this was, I'm not excusing it at all, but this was a case of, we've asked the police for help, nothing's happened, so we're going to take matters into our own hands. Again, not the right way to go around things at all.
I think one of the things we need to look at, working together, is how we can actually put together restrictions on knives and the sale of some of the knives that we've seen here. Something that we know that libertarians on the right, the Trump administration and the National Rifle Association in America absolutely loathe, because they think the more guns you have, the less crime you have. Sadly, the police don't agree.
So, hopefully your technical issues are resolved. So welcome back. I don't know how much of that you call. Yeah, so some interesting points there from Matthew Cordy, Chris Dyke, Lee Hunt, George Fielding, Leonie Oliver, and closed up there by Darren Sanders. But I think Leonie's point as a mum was an interesting one about, you know, what conversations with our kids. Why do you let them enter? You know, why do you stop them entering into ever the possibility? But they think that the okay solution to them being frightened is to carry a knife. Having more knives does not make people safe. I don't know if you call Darren's answer.
I think though, Simon, it's a continuation of the earlier motion, isn't it? You know, at the end of the day, antisocial behaviour often, you know, it creates fear. You know, there is that thing, if there is a large gang of youths gathered outside a shop, you know, being loud and just being youths, you know, as I always, you know, even I don't find it comfortable to try and find my way through them with either my guide dog or my cane. I just find it uncomfortable.
Sure.
And I think there is that element of, if antisocial behaviour creates that perception of fear, particularly amongst young people, you know, the logic, flawed as it is that I'm going to need to defend myself. Ipso facto, I carry a knife. And I think that, you know, it's the argument that the whole of America kind of underlines its gun laws on, isn't it? Which is that, well, if you ban guns, the criminals have the guns and us law-abiding citizens don't have them. And it's a specious argument. We all know that. But it is, there is a reality to it. And I think for me, you know, it started kind of where I started to go slightly Daily Mail reader on the antisocial behaviour. And I think Chris Dyke expressed it very eloquently. You know, it is about consequences. If you carry a knife, then the worst you're doing is you're going to threaten, intimidate somebody with it to try and put them off attacking you. That's the best possible outcome. But if you stab somebody with it, 2 lives are ruined. The person who gets stabbed and the person who does the stabbing. So that there has to be a much more, I hate to use the word zero tolerance response, but there's got to be consequences. And that simply,
I think so. But again, to Councillor Oliver's point, if people just don't think they're going to get caught, and again that it kind of intertwines with the earlier motion, then there aren't any. It doesn't matter what the consequences are. So I guess there's kind of 2 calculations there, isn't it? Will I get caught, and what price will I have to pay if I get caught?
Yes. Yeah.
Because if you haven't got the sense to realise that you carrying a knife means that you're possibly more likely to actually be the victim of a knife crime.
Yep.
And that you're more likely to be involved in something where, some of the examples that Jacob Short had done were attempted murder. They're attempted murder charges that people are on. These aren't, and I guess that was only one of the. To be fair, as an aside, that was at least one of the mildly comforting things of the horrific list that he shared. Actually, in all of them, criminal charges were being brought.
Yeah.
So if we're also then comparing that to the argument of these things are happening and they're bloody terrifying and we don't want them happening and we don't want our kids out in an environment that's like this. But things are happening to in those examples at least. I know it's a handful of data, but in that respect, it's not like these people are getting off scot-free. What we want to happen is it never to happen, because as you said, and it was a point that Councillor Lee Hunt made, 2 lives are wasted when something happens, and that was kind of the thing. So. Will it surprise you that, of course, everybody agreed?
Everyone agreed. Yep. No,
because no one was going to put on their leaflets, "We're in favour of knife crime."
No, and there is an element of it's a little bit. It is a, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but it's a bit of a performative motion to call upon the, whoever's sat in the Home Office to do more to tackle knife crime. I think it's a given. We all agree, right? What have we got next?
Yeah, but like you say, from an actions point of view, it's a write to the Home Secretary and call for more things that they're probably already wanting to do anyway. So, the next motion, so 12E, was about local government reorganisation. Now, I haven't got a clip for this one, but essentially, it's trying to address that the government's obviously bringing through plans to reorganise local government, and the council aren't happy about basically how that's going. This was brought by Pitt and Sanders, and the financial risk to Portsmouth taxpayers of inheriting some of the Hampshire County Council deficits if we end up in the expanded thing. So a bit of a bun fight kind of took place, but essentially that was carried nem con, as in no one voted against it. But it wasn't unanimous, so essentially it sounds like probably the Labour group kind of sat on their hands, but didn't vote to abstain and just didn't vote. So,
but they're in an impossible position, aren't they?
They are,
because it is their team that are forcing this on the city. No one wants it, and I'm sure Portsmouth Labour feel the same. But it's then very difficult for them to stick their hands up and say, "Yeah, we think our governors in Westminster are a bit rubbish." So, we're good. We're good with that one.
Yeah. So that was that one, and then 12F, which was the Portsdown improving pedestrian safety on Portsdown Hill Road. This was the one that Stacey Edmonds had talked about in the deputation. It's got a 1,200 signatory petition about basically putting in a crossing across Portsdown Hill Road. Now that's for anyone who doesn't know the city, that's the road that literally goes across the hill, and there isn't a safe place to cross.
No.
So you've got children trying to get to from obviously where they live to schools and vice versa, or people going about their business. You've got elderly or less mobile people who literally can't cross the road because it's just too unsafe. And Simon Bosher also kind of pointed out that when he was the cabinet member for traffic and transportation in 2017, before the Conservative administration fell in 2018, this was kind of on the radar to actually put a crossing in. So it's kind of like, well, what's kind of like going on? So again, this was brought by Bosher and Simon Bosher and Spencer Gardner from the Conservatives. A lot of accidents, and it's one of the most dangerous roads in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. And over the last 5 years, 61 accidents, including 4 fatalities, with one that was even so serious they were airlifted to QA. Bearing in mind that QA is probably less than 2 miles from there. So that kind of shows you how serious it is. With Councillor Bosher closing out with a let's adopt a can do rather than just bury this in bureaucracy, and can we please keep the ward councillors informed and involved. So unanimous again. No one's going to say we don't think we should have road safety, are they? That's
no, and I think in the week, Police and Crime Commissioner Donna Jones also announced that she was putting funding into average speed cameras that would operate throughout that, because as somebody who lives close enough to it, it is a racetrack all summer, and it doesn't surprise me that lots of people get hurt. So no, good outcome. And where did we go next?
So 12G, investing in early years, so breakfast clubs and childcare, brought by the Labour groups, Councillor George Fielding and Councillor Charlotte Gerarda. It's calling for activity promoting free childcare entitlements and breakfast clubs to families, embedding breakfast clubs and childcare expansions into the child poverty strategy, and publishing an annual report covering breakfast club uptake, childcare capacity versus demand, delivery of the 33 hours of nursery childcare that the government have. I think they recently doubled that, didn't they, to the 30? Workforce recruitment and funding and measurable impacts. That's a lovely term. And calling on the council leadership to advocate long-term national investment in early years. So again, this was we'll hear from the clip, but this was another one where it's quite clear that no one's against the idea of what it's asking for, but the way it's being, it was proposed, caused some responses or reactions, should we say?
And framed in a very peculiar way as, who, pray tell, is the Minister for Early Years? That would be Stephen Morgan, MP, Labour. So, seems let's have a listen.
Yes, yes. So let's play that one.
We see the impact in our schools, in community services, and in the daily struggle of parents who tell us, and I quote, "I want to work more hours, but I can't find childcare. I can't afford wraparound care. My child goes to school hungry some mornings because we simply run out of time and options." That is not just a social issue, it's an economic issue, a fairness issue, and a moral issue. We know breakfast clubs work. They improve concentration, attendance, behaviour, and well-being. Teachers tell us they transform a child's entire school day. So today we clearly say, no child in Portsmouth should start the school day hungry.
Not just for families now, but also for future families, because actually, unfortunately, still, the biggest barrier to having children is concerns about cost. And we shouldn't be in a situation like that in 2025, particularly when we've got an ageing society where couples or individuals are choosing not to have children because, they simply can't afford it. So, in particular, I'm really, really proud and really personally relieved in relation to the free nursery hours, and it would just be really good to promote it more, because one thing that cropped up in Employment Committee a couple of weeks ago, we were discussing obviously the sort of annual workforce review and looking at those who are working part-time, which obviously the lion's share is women, and obviously there's a lion's share of women workers in the council, full stop. But it became apparent that actually the doubling of nursery hours hadn't really been promoted internally to council staff, and that presents a really big opportunity if, if parents choose to increase their hours at work and, to take the benefit of the nursery hours. So obviously where we can promote it, where we can, that's obviously a positive thing to do so that more families can benefit from this opportunity, which is why we were keen to make sure that policies like that were promoted.
Now, we've put in an amendment to try and tidy up the inaccuracies in the Labour motion. Here's some numbers for you. We, and I mean Portsmouth City Council, and I mean Councillor Horton, myself and Councillor Dorrington, working with a cross-departmental officer group, have been having regular meetings for 18 months to try and identify the childcare places in early years settings that don't exist. This council, this administration, put £100,000 in the last budget to top up the money that we didn't get from the government. And guess what? In the next government, in the next budget, we've got to find another £120,000 because we didn't get the money from your government, George. So this council has created, or will have created, by the time we finish this programme that we've worked incredibly hard on, 650 new nursery spaces. Do you know how many of those are actually in the schools programme that is the Labour government policy? 12. 35 more potentially. Your policy doesn't work, George. This government policy's come in to save our children. This Liberal Democrat administration has been working hard for years to sort out things that this Labour government is now getting round to, and we're supposed to sit here and say, thank you. No, Lord Mayor, we're not going to do that today. Council officers work incredibly hard to do the right thing. We've sorted your mess out before you got round to introducing any of this stuff. This council looks after children in this city, and it's done that for a very, very, very long time.
Actually, this motion covers so much. There's 3 completely different policy areas. There's three different kind of streams of work mopped together in one. So I kind of was torn between nodding it through, but I had conversations with Councillor Pitt and Councillor Dorrington and the other councillors that actually I think it would, to be fair to the council officers, but also to the early years providers, as well as the families, that actually it needed to reflect a bit more reality, because it did very much, and I get why Labour colleagues want to highlight this focus of the government, and I'm fully supportive of that, but it wasn't accurate or authentic in the way that it stood. I just want you to know that I am not going to be confrontational. I genuinely want to improve that this notice of motion, and in order for it to be a bit more accurate. And the first thing I want to say is I actually think colleagues across the chamber have this rooted in their values. Nobody wants starving children. Nobody wants children not to have, the best start in life, etc. And the politics, I think, to some extent, have made this quite difficult for us to support it in the manner that it's written, because it's definitely not the domain just of Labour.
What a lazy motion. We spend hours and hours, meeting after meeting, trying to look for nursery provisions. We're trying to look for nursery provisions because they've been summoned up by your mates up at Whitehall, but they've been underfunded. So now this council is having to fund the provisions that all your friends up there want to put on a flyer, want to put on a poster. The school breakfast clubs, we're already doing it. If you had questions like this, you only had to come and ask. Just put it down in a motion to try and kind of make it look like we're not doing everything that you've written down there. We're already doing and more. We're doing everything that we possibly can to negate a situation which Labour created. If you want us to do more, then please fund it.
So the last comment there from Councillor Nick Dorrington. So it was, what was it? No, it was George Fielding. I keep writing Graham Heaney. Charlotte Gerarda, Steve Pitt, Susie Horton, and Nick Dorrington. So a lot of kind of to and fro kind of ensued on this one of look, a lot of these things that you're calling for, we already do. Had you only looked and asked, then you wouldn't have done this. Steve Pitt at one point accused them of basically copying it being a party kind of copy and paste job, which George Fielding declined. Said that it wasn't. So it's again, it seems like if this thing is already happening, but the council have struggled to find the money to make it happen themselves, but there is government money available because there's now a government scheme to do it, and the government would fund it. I'm kind of confused as to A, why it was bought, but B, also, do we need to struggle to find the money if the government are offering to fund the scheme themselves, or am I missing something?
Well, I think probably with the devil's in the detail, isn't it, Simon? Because it is that piece where, free childcare places. Well, that all sounds fairly straightforward. But again, if you read around the subject, you find that it's a little bit like the money that the government is prepared to pay for that childcare place. Childcare service providers are saying, well, we can't provide, we can't provide places for that hourly rate.
No.
And with the living wage increasing, very markedly over the last 5 years, that there is an understanding of that. And I think that the difficulty for me with this is this. There's something that just makes me deeply uncomfortable about the whole subject, which is this element of, for both the administration and the local councillors from Labour on behalf of the government, there was the whole thing just, and as I say, I think Susie Horton hit the nail on the head. There are multiple things in play here, and there just seemed to be, for me, there was nothing substantive in there other than, I find the whole, well, we don't want children going to school hungry. No, we don't. But I think it was George in his first sentence said, I speak to parents that say, sometimes my children go to school hungry because we've run out of time and options. I as a parent myself, I so struggle with that because, well, ultimately it's your responsibility to feed your child. You cannot run out of time or options. I don't accept that. And for me, it's the danger that we move towards, well, the state must feed the children because the parents aren't capable. And I just think the whole, it just struck me as a performative rap battle of everybody wanting to do the right thing, but a little bit, well, our government's doing it now, and well, our council's been doing it for years. I'm not sure we got anything from that.
I don't know. I think. I mean, I wouldn't quite use the words that Councillor Dorrington said. He called it a lazy motion.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of quite. It seems quite confused, and as Councillor Horton pointed out, it's trying to do a lot of related and adjacent things, but they're not. It seems to be trying to kind of celebrate, champion, and publicise these different mechanisms or these different schemes that the government has brought out. But yeah, I did pick up on kind of the observation of, well, is there actually spare childcare that isn't actually being taken up? Because if it isn't, it doesn't matter how many hours you're giving to people. If there's none actually available in the city, because the organisations can't provide it, then that's not the issue, is it? It's not publicising it to the parents that's the problem. The blockage is actually in trying to open up those pathways to allow those companies to do that, and that's a whole different kettle of onions.
But I think it's very relevant though, Simon, isn't it? You and I are entitled to dental care, to access to an NHS dentist, but there aren't any.
No.
So it's similar. I just find the whole thing to be, it's a little bit, for me, performative from Labour about, look how much good the new Labour government has done in this area. And I can understand, why, Steve was as angry as he was, because there's an element of, it is an area where, Portsmouth is a relatively deprived city, and it's not an unknown problem to anybody who's worked in the administration or has even worked in council to know that, it's a problem that needs solving. So that
Yeah.
one felt to me very much like, well, how can you vote against it because it's children shouldn't be hungry and childcare should be supported? But again, it's the way in which it was constructed. I'll be interested to see which way this one went.
Yeah, so this one was actually unanimous in the end, because nobody, and I think Steve Pitt said, I can't remember if I included it in the clip or not, but Steve Pitt said in one of his responses was, we're not going to have you saying that we're against against this, or that we want children to go to school hungry. We that they're not, and no one in the chamber was voting for children to go to school hungry. But it kind of seems like, it kind of seems strange to say, on the one hand, do you either not know or not care, or you're not interested of what we're actually already doing, and just want us to celebrate the fact that the government have got this policy that may or may not be the best thing since sliced bread, because it doesn't actually entirely work. But it seemed that what some of the administration's frustration was that, but you now want us to turn around and worship the ground you walk on for suggesting a thing that we're already doing.
Yeah. No, and it's, and as you say, was this one just leaflet fodder? Could you vote against it? No. What does it do materially to improve the lives of anybody? Nothing. Yeah, but I guess with it being this close to Christmas, you can't have.
You got to have it. To basically to grab the nearest memes available. It's Admiral Akbar, isn't it? It's a trap, and it's a bit of Christmas Carol, isn't it? It's the.
I was going down the Tiny Tim route myself. Yeah. That's exactly where I was about to go with it.
Yeah,
it's like,
so
won't somebody think of poor Tiny Tim? But Mr. Sansbury, Tiny Tim weighs nearly 18 stones, and if he eats any more heartily, he'll turn into a pie shop. But yes, on that misquote from Blackadder's Christmas Carol, harmony and unanimity broke out, and everyone agreed that children shouldn't go hungry.
Yeah, weirdly enough, there was no one standing up and arguing for more hungry children. So I just kind of found it kind of strange, and the Labour group also kind of seemed kind of mildly. I couldn't, whether they were either surprised or just kind of nonplussed about the administration's response. I mean, there was a bit of kind of back and forth in some of the exchanges on Tuesday, where Councillor Hunt got a bit carried away and had to be remonstrated repeatedly by the Lord Mayor for pointing at the Labour group as he was chiding them for voting against things that they claimed that they hadn't voted against in planning. I don't think he was talking about planning, but but it just for actually a meeting that's December, that, to be honest with you, not many people were probably watching or following it, and will all be old news by the time they come to print their leaflets in February. It just seemed, I don't know, it just seemed
I guess you've got to find something to try and fill the leaflet inches up. So, was that the last one, Simon?
That was the last motion. And what happened at that point was the Lord Mayor did a bunk.
Why not?
because he was double booked and was committed to a carol service for a worthy charitable organisation in the city. And by that point, the Deputy Lord Mayor had actually left proceedings earlier on because he wasn't feeling well, along with a couple of other councillors. There seemed to be something going around. So after a bit of further to and fro with bureaucracy, they settled on previous Lord Mayor Councillor Hugh Mason essentially being the chair for the members' questions, which they kind of ploughed on through. But I haven't kind of got more detail on those. But it was an interesting kind of point that Simon Bosher was making on. You remember kind of his earlier points about the things kind of not being kind of moved forward. He made a repeated point with the Traffic and Transportation Cabinet member, Councillor Candlish, about waiting 4 months for basically a nonsensical, non-committal response from a member of the traffic team. Well, and was that really good enough? It was. Well, I guess so it seems kind of that's the angle kind of he's making there.
I guess if we end then on 2025, we lost the Lord Mayor of Christmas Present. The Lord Mayor of Christmas Future had to leave the chamber, but luckily Hugh Mason was there as the Lord Mayor of Christmas Past. So on that Charles Dickens related bombshell, for the last time this year, you've been listening to the Pompey Politics Podcast. I've been Ian Tiny Morris.
And I've been Simon Sainsbury, and please do make sure to leave us a comment, leave us a like, follow, or subscribe to us on YouTube. And you can sign up to our email newsletter, the QR code in the top right-hand corner, or go to our website, where you can also find more details and links to the policies themselves and links to the specific debates. If you don't want to watch the whole meeting, you can actually kind of click to those. So if you'd like to go and sit through it all again, just like I have, then good luck and have fun. Have a fantastic Christmas, and we'll see you in the new year.
Don't forget to like, follow and comment on Facebook, or comment and subscribe on YouTube. Find us on all the social media platforms: Facebook, X, YouTube, Threads, LinkedIn.